The Tibetan Mastiff is a large-sized Tibetan dog breed. Its double coat is medium to long, subject to climate, and found in a wide variety of colors, including solid black, black and tan, various shades of red, from pale gold to deep red, and bluish-gray, dilute black, and sometimes with white markings around neck, chest, and legs. The term Mastiff was assigned by the Europeans who first came to Tibet because that name was used to refer to nearly all large dog breeds in the West. Early Western visitors to Tibet misnamed several of its breeds, such as the Tibetan Terrier, which is not a terrier, and the Tibetan Spaniel, which is not a spaniel. A better name for the breed might be the Tibetan Mountain Dog, or to encompass the landrace breed throughout its range, the Himalayan Mountain Dog. The Tibetan Mastiff is considered a primitive breed. Citation needed. It typically retains the hardiness which would be required for it to survive in Tibet, Ladakh and other high-altitude Himalayan regions. Instinctive behaviors, including canine pack behavior, contributed to the survival of the breed in harsh environments. It is one of the few primitive dog breeds that retains a single estrus per year instead of two, even at much lower altitudes and in much more temperate climates than its native climate. This characteristic is also found in wild canids such as the wolf and other wild animals. Since its estrus usually takes place during late autumn, most Tibetan Mastiff puppies are born between December and January. Its double coat is long, subject to climate, and found in a wide variety of colors, including solid black, black and tan, various shades of red, from pale gold to deep red, and bluish-gray, dilute black, often with white markings. As of 2014, some breeders had begun marketing white Tibetan Mastiffs. These dogs are actually very pale gold, not truly white. The coat of a Tibetan Mastiff lacks the unpleasant big dog smell that affects many large breeds. The coat, whatever its length or color, should shed dirt and odors. Although the dogs shed somewhat throughout the year, there is generally one great molt in late winter or early spring and sometimes another, lesser molt in the late summer or early autumn. Sterilization of the dog may dramatically affect the coat as to texture, density and shedding pattern. Tibetan Mastiffs are shown under one standard in the West, but separated by the Indian breed standard into two varieties: lion head, smaller, exceptionally long hair from forehead to withers, creating a ruff or mane, and tiger head, larger, shorter hair. As a flock guardian dog in Tibet, and in the West, it uses all the usual livestock guardian tactics, e.g., barking, scent marking perimeters, to warn away predators and avoid direct confrontations. Two Tibetan Mastiffs can run up to a speed of 20 miles per hour, 32 kilometers per hour, over short distances. As a socialized, more domestic dog, it can thrive in a spacious, fenced yard with a canine companion, but it is not an appropriate dog for apartment living. The Western-bred dogs are generally more easygoing, although still somewhat aloof with strangers. Through hundreds of years of selective breeding for a protective flock and family guardian, the breed has been prized for being a nocturnal sentry, keeping would-be predators and intruders at bay, and barking at unidentified sounds throughout the night. Leaving a Tibetan Mastiff outside all night with neighbors nearby is not recommended. They often sleep during the day, making them more active, alert, and aware at night. Like all flock guardian breeds, they are intelligent and stubborn to a fault, so obedience training is recommended, although it is only mildly successful with some individuals, since this is a strong-willed, powerful-bodied breed. Unless they are to be used exclusively as livestock guardians, socialization training is also critical with this breed, because of their reserved nature with strangers and guardian instincts. They can be excellent family dogs. Depending on the family, owners must understand canine psychology and be able and willing to spend a lot of time and devotion to training their dogs. Lack of consistency can result in the creation of unpredictable dogs. The protectiveness of Tibetan Mastiffs requires alertness and planning by the owner, in order to avoid mishaps when the dog is merely reacting as a guardian. The breed is not recommended for novice dog owners. Many breeders claim a life expectancy of 10–16 years, but these claims are unsubstantiated. Some lines do produce long-lived dogs. Other, more closely inbred lines, produce short-lived, unhealthy dogs. The breed has fewer genetic health problems than many breeds, but cases can be found of hypothyroidism, entropion, ectropion, dystochiasis, skin problems including allergies, autoimmune problems including Demodex, Addison's disease, Cushing's disease, missing teeth, malocclusion, overbite, underbite, dry mouth, cardiac problems, seizures, epilepsy, progressive retinal atrophy, PRA, cataracts, and small ear canals with a tendency for infection. As with most large breeds, some will suffer with elbow or hip dysplasia. Canine inherited demyelinative neuropathy, CIDN, an inherited condition, appeared in one of the prominent lines of Tibetan Mastiffs in the early 1980s. 6 full citation needed. Unfortunately, known carriers were bred extensively and are behind many lines still being actively bred. Citation needed because the mode of inheritance appears to be as a simple recessive. Continued inbreeding can still produce affected puppies. Hypothyroidism is fairly common in Tibetan Mastiffs, as it is in many large northern breeds. They should be tested periodically throughout their lives using a complete thyroid panel. However, because the standard thyroid levels were established using domestic dog breeds, test results must be considered in the context of what is normal for the breed, not what is normal across all breeds. Many dogs of this breed will have low thyroid values, but no clinical symptoms. Vets and owners differ on the relative merits of medicating dogs which test low, but are completely asymptomatic. Originally these dogs were used to protect Buddhist monasteries and monks of Tibet from animals such as bears, wolves, and snow leopards. The Tibetan Mastiff is a phenotypically distinct dog breed that was bred as a flock guardian in the high altitudes of the Himalayas and the Tibetan plateaus. Mir Ijatola, 1872, wrote of the Tibetan Mastiff. The dogs of Tibet are twice the size of those seen in India, with large heads and hairy bodies. They are powerful animals. During the day they are kept chained up, and are let loose at night to guard their master's house. In the early 20th century, the Prince of Wales, the future George V, introduced a pair of Tibetan Mastiffs to the United Kingdom. By 1906, the breed was prevalent enough in England to be shown at the Crystal Palace show. However, during the war years, the breed lost favor and focus and nearly died out in England. The breed has been gaining in popularity worldwide since 1980. Although the breed is still considered somewhat uncommon, as more active breeders arose and produced adequate numbers of dogs, various registries and show organizations, FCI, AKC, began to recognize the breed. In 2008, the Tibetan Mastiff competed for the first time in the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show. Since AKC recognition, the number of active breeders has skyrocketed, leading to overbreeding of puppies, many of which are highly inbred and of questionable quality. Initially, the breed suffered because of the limited gene pool from the original stock citation needed by 2015, due to excessive breeding and unsuitability of the breed as a pet in urban situations. Prices in China for the best dogs had fallen to about $2,000, and both lower quality and crossbreed dogs were being abandoned. In 2011, a DNA study concluded that there was a genetic relationship between the Tibetan Mastiff and the Great Pyrenees, Bernese Mountain Dog, Rottweiler, and Saint Bernard, and that these large breed dogs are probably partially descended from the Tibetan Mastiff. In 2014, a study added the Leonberger to the list of possible relatives. The Tibetan Mastiff was able to adapt to the extreme highland conditions of the Tibetan Plateau very quickly compared with other mammals such as the yak, Tibetan antelope, snow leopard, and the wild boar. The Tibetan Mastiff's ability to avoid hypoxia in high altitudes, due to its higher hemoglobin levels compared with low-altitude dogs, was due to prehistoric interbreeding. 1314 in 2020. A genomic analysis indicates that a ghost population of an unknown wolf-like canid which is deeply diverged from modern Holarctic wolves and dogs has contributed the EPAS1 allele found in both Himalayan wolves and dogs, and this allows them to live in high altitudes. Watchful, aloof, imposing, and intimidating, the ancient Tibetan Mastiff is the guardian dog supreme. These densely coated giants are mellow and calm around the house, sweetly devoted to family, and aloof and territorial with strangers. Coming face to face with this ancient behemoth, an intruder up to no good will likely move on to easier pickings. TMS can stand 26 inches at the shoulder and weigh well over 100 pounds. It's impossible to discuss this breed without leaning on words like powerful, muscular, massive, and substantial. And yet, TMS are quite light-footed and will meet a perceived threat with surprising agility. The broad head, with its high-set, V-shaped ears and expressive brown eyes, projects a noble, sagacious expression. Centuries ago, in Tibet, Tibetan Mastiffs originated as a primitive breed, primarily used for guarding in the tough Himalayan terrain. Today, these majestic dogs continue to fulfill their ancestral duties as guardians. They've also seamlessly adapted to life as cherished family companions and even gracing the show ring. Despite their imposing size, these pups have hearts of gold, especially for their human families. Tibetan Mastiffs are renowned for their steadfast loyalty and affection towards their loved ones. They have a deeply ingrained guardian instinct, making them protective when strangers approach. However, when introduced by trusted individuals, these gentle giants readily extend their warm embrace, demonstrating that their massive stature is equaled only by their immense love and devotion. Advertisement. When considering a Tibetan Mastiff, it's advisable to prioritize adopting from rescue organizations or shelters to provide a loving home to a dog in need. However, if you decide to purchase a Tibetan Mastiff puppy, it's crucial to choose a reputable breeder. Conduct thorough research to ensure that the breeder follows ethical practices and prioritizes the well-being of their dogs. Reputable Tibetan Mastiff breeders prioritize the health and temperament of their dogs, conduct necessary health screenings, and provide a nurturing environment for the puppies. This active approach ensures that you bring home a healthy and happy pup while discouraging unethical breeding practices. When considering a Tibetan Mastiff, it's advisable to prioritize adopting from rescue organizations or shelters to provide a loving home to a dog in need. However, if you decide to purchase a Tibetan Mastiff puppy, it's crucial to choose a reputable breeder. Conduct thorough research to ensure that the breeder follows ethical practices and prioritizes the well-being of their dogs. Reputable Tibetan Mastiff breeders prioritize the health and temperament of their dogs, conduct necessary health screenings, and provide a nurturing environment for the puppies. This active approach ensures that you bring home a healthy and happy pup while discouraging unethical breeding practices. The Tibetan Mastiff is a majestic, protective breed known for its noble appearance and lovely coat. They are loving, loyal, and great with family, but they require experienced owners. These independent dogs won't always obey commands, and they aren't suited for obedience or agility competitions. They tend to be quiet indoors but can bark if left outside at night. Proper fencing is a must, as they can climb fences. They may not be the best fit for families with young children or a bustling social life, as they can be territorial. Socialization is vital to their well-being, and they should meet various people and go to different places. While they can be a wonderful breed in the right setting, owning a Tibetan Mastiff is an adventure that requires careful consideration and preparation. Tibetan Mastiff highlights. Impressive size. Tibetan Mastiffs are imposing dogs, with males weighing between 90 to 160 pounds and females slightly smaller. Their size alone can be a deterrent to potential threats, making them excellent protectors for homes and livestock. Loyal guardians, these dogs possess an innate protective instinct. They are known for their loyalty to their family and can be fiercely protective when it comes to their loved ones. Low shedding. Tibetan Mastiffs typically have a double coat that sheds minimally throughout most of the year. While they undergo a seasonal shedding period, their grooming needs are generally manageable. Quiet watchdogs, they are vigilant and have a tendency to bark to alert their owners, especially at night. However, they tend to be quieter during the day, which can be an advantage in residential settings. Early socialization. Early and continuous socialization is crucial for Tibetan Mastiffs to ensure they are well adjusted around other dogs and people. This socialization helps them differentiate between potential threats and non-threats, a vital skill for a guardian breed. Exercise and stimulation. Like many large breeds, Tibetan Mastiffs need both physical and mental stimulation to prevent boredom-related behavior issues. Regular exercise and challenging activities are essential to keep them content. The Tibetan Mastiff originated, where else, in Tibet. Like so many breeds, he has little documented history from before the late 19th century, but he's believed to have been around for many centuries. DNA evidence tells us that Mastiff-type dogs originated in Tibet some 5,000 years ago, and the Tibetan Mastiff is no doubt a descendant of those dogs. They developed into two types, the khyi, who lived in villages or traveled with nomadic shepherds and functioned as flock guardians, and the larger khyi, which were often given to lamasseries, where they served as guardians for the Tibetan Buddhist monks, or lamas, who lived there. Little is known of the Tibetan Mastiff before 1800. In 1800, a Captain Samuel Turner mentioned the use of huge dogs in his memoir, an account of an embassy to the court of the Tesul Lama in Tibet, but he gave no description of them. In 1847, the first dog from Tibet was imported to England and given to Queen Victoria as a gift from Lord Hardinge, the Viceroy of India. In 1873, England's Kennel Club was formed and the Tibetan Mastiff was officially entered into the stud book as the Tibetan Mastiff, leaving its earlier title as Large Dog from Tibet behind. In 1874, the Prince of Wales, who later became King Edward VII, imported two more Tibetan Mastiffs to England and they were shown in 1875 at the Alexandra Palace Show. Tibetan Mastiffs continued to be imported occasionally into England and Europe, and the first Tibetan Mastiff breed club was formed in 1931. World War II put an end to breeding, and it wasn't until 1976 that English breeders began importing the dogs again. The breed had a similar history in the United States. The late 1950s saw two Tibetan Mastiffs given to the President of the United States, but the dogs were taken to a farm and vanished from public scrutiny. It wasn't until 1970 that several more Tibetan Mastiffs were imported into the United States and they became the foundation dogs of the United States line. The Tibetan Mastiff Club of America was founded in 1974, as was the American Tibetan Mastiff Association. The first show that the Tibetan Mastiffs appeared in was the first national specialty match in October 1979. The breed was only recently recognized by the American Kennel Club as a member of the working group in January 2007. Today, in Tibet, it's difficult to find a purebred Tibetan Mastiff, but occasionally one can be found traveling with caravans and traders, and guarding livestock and homes. A male Tibetan Mastiff stands at least 26 inches tall at the shoulder and weighs in the vicinity of 100 to 160 or more pounds. Females are at least 24 inches tall at the shoulder and weigh 75 to 125 or more pounds. The word challenging is frequently applied to this independent, stubborn breed. He's intelligent and has a strong sense of self, expecting to be treated as an equal, not as a pet. He wants to please his people, but he also has his own agenda and must often be reminded of what he's been asked to do. The Tibetan Mastiff is a loyal family guardian who takes his job seriously and is aloof or reserved towards strangers. Early socialization that continues throughout his life will help prevent him from becoming territorially aggressive. Enrolling him in a puppy kindergarten class is a great start. Inviting visitors over regularly, and taking him to busy parks, stores that allow dogs, and on leisurely strolls to meet neighbors will also help him polish his social skills. Tibetan Mastiffs are generally healthy, but like all breeds, they can be subject to certain health conditions. Not all TMS will get any or all of these diseases, but it's important to be aware of them if you are considering this breed. Canine hip dysplasia, CHD. This is a heritable condition in which the thigh bone doesn't fit snugly into the hip joint, eventually causing lameness or arthritis. X-ray screening for hip dysplasia is done by the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals or the University of Pennsylvania Hip Improvement Program, PEN-HIP. Dogs with hip dysplasia should not be bred. Hip dysplasia is hereditary, but it can be worsened by environmental factors, such as rapid growth from a high-calorie diet or injuries incurred from jumping or falling on slick floors. Elbow dysplasia. This is a heritable condition common to large breed dogs. It's thought to be caused by different growth rates of the three bones that make up the dog's elbow, causing joint laxity. This can lead to painful lameness. Depending on the severity of the problem, your vet may recommend surgery, weight management, or medication to control the pain. Panosteitis. Panosteitis can best be described as canine growing pains. It's an inflammation of the long bones that affects young, large breed dogs and causes lameness, which often shifts from leg to leg. The condition usually lasts from 1 to 6 months and eventually resolves with maturity. Any discomfort can be managed with pain medication. Osteochondritis dissecans, OCD. This orthopedic condition, caused by improper growth of cartilage in the joints, usually occurs in the shoulder, but may also affect the elbow. It causes a painful stiffening of the joint and can be detected in dogs as early as 5 to 7 months of age. It may require surgical repair. Because it appears to be a hereditary condition, dogs with OCD should not be bred. Canine inherited demyelinative neuropathy, CIDN. This is an inherited condition that is found in Tibetan Mastiff puppies by the time they are 6 weeks of age. The condition affects the nervous system and causes weakness in the rear legs that eventually progresses to complete paralysis. There is no treatment, but selective breeding has greatly reduced the incidence of CIDN. Hypothyroidism. This common endocrine disorder, which usually affects middle-aged and older dogs, is caused by a deficiency of thyroid hormone. Signs include weight gain, flaky skin, and lack of energy. Once diagnosed, hypothyroidism is easily managed with daily medication, which must continue throughout the dog's life. If you're buying a puppy, find a good breeder who will show you health clearances for both your puppy's parents. Health clearances prove that a dog's been tested for and cleared of a particular condition. In Tibetan Mastiffs, you should expect to see health clearances from the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals for hips, elbows, and thyroid. Because some health problems don't appear until a dog reaches full maturity, health clearances aren't issued to dogs younger than 2 years old. Look for a breeder who doesn't breed her dogs until they're 2 or 3 years old. The Tibetan Mastiff is a companion dog who should live indoors, with access to a large, securely fenced yard where he can exercise. A small yard or dog run isn't sufficient for his needs. His heavy coat makes him unsuited to life in a hot, humid climate, although he can tolerate dry heat. During hot weather, he should always have access to shade and fresh water whenever he's outdoors. The Tibetan Mastiff's exercise requirements can be satisfied with 20 to 30 minutes of play in the yard or a half-hour walk. He'll enjoy having another dog to play with, preferably one who comes close to his size. Tibetan Mastiff puppies grow more quickly than smaller breeds, but they aren't physically mature until they're more than a year old. To prevent orthopedic damage, limit exercise to free play in the yard, and avoid long walks until your puppy is a year old. Begin training the day you bring your Tibetan Mastiff puppy home. They are intelligent and learn quickly, but their independent and stubborn nature means that strict and formal obedience training doesn't bring the best results. Be patient, firm, and consistent to develop the strongest bond with your Tibetan Mastiff. Always look for behaviors you can reward instead of punishing him for infractions. Regular training practice and social interaction will help ensure that you live together happily. A bored or lonely Tibetan Mastiff is more destructive and noisy than you can imagine. House training comes easily to the Tibetan Mastiff. Crate training assists in this process and prevents your puppy from chewing on things he shouldn't or otherwise getting into trouble when you aren't around to supervise. A crate also gives him a safe haven where he can retreat when he's feeling overwhelmed or tired. A crate should never be used as a punishment. Leash training is also important, especially since your Tibetan Mastiff will eventually weigh up to 160 pounds or more and be able to pull you where he wants to go. Tibetan Mastiffs should never be walked off leash, and having good leash manners is essential to both the state of your muscles and your happiness. Socialization is a must for this breed. Not only can Tibetan Mastiffs be overly dominant toward other dogs, they tend to become overly protective of their home and family. Puppy socialization classes are a great start, but socialization shouldn't end there. Visit many different dog-friendly stores, parks, and events. Invite different people to your home on multiple occasions so your Tibetan Mastiff learns that others can come onto your property and his territory. With the proper training, consistency, and socialization, your Tibetan Mastiff can be a wonderful family member who guards, protects, and loves you unconditionally. Tibetan Mastiff feeding. Recommended daily amount: 4 to 6 or more cups of a high-quality dog food daily, divided into 2 meals. To avoid gastric dilatation, volvulus, also known as bloat, withhold food and water for at least an hour after vigorous exercise. How much your adult dog eats depends on his size, age, build, metabolism, and activity level. Dogs are individuals, just like people, and they don't all need the same amount of food. It almost goes without saying that a highly active dog will need more than a couch potato dog. The quality of dog food you buy also makes a difference. The better the dog food, the further it will go toward nourishing your dog and the less of it you'll need to shake into your dog's bowl. Keep your Tibetan Mastiff in good shape by measuring his food and feeding him twice a day rather than leaving food out all the time. If you're unsure whether he's overweight, give him the eye test and the hands-on test. First, look down at him. You should be able to see a waist. Then place your hands on his back, thumbs along the spine, with the fingers spread downward. You should be able to feel but not see his ribs without having to press hard. If you can't, he needs less food and more exercise. For more on feeding your Tibetan Mastiff, see our guidelines for buying the right food, feeding your puppy, and feeding your adult dog. The Tibetan Mastiff has a double coat with a long, thick, coarse textured topcoat and a heavy, soft, woolly undercoat. The undercoat is thinner during warmer months. The hair is hard and straight, never curly, wavy, or silky. A heavy mane covers the neck and shoulders, and the tail and breeches, the upper thighs, have a heavy coat and feathering. Males generally have more coat than females, including a thicker mane around the neck and shoulders. The coat comes in black, brown, gold, and blue, with or without tan markings above and around the eyes, on the side of the muzzle, on the throat, and on the lower part of the front forelegs, the inside of the rear legs, the breeches and the underside of the tail. Some Tibetan Mastiffs have small white markings on the chest and feet but nowhere else on the body. The undercoat may be lighter shades of the dominant color or gray or tan on black and tan dogs. Tibetan Mastiffs with sable or brindle coats are faulted in the show ring, but their color doesn't affect their ability to be a companion or guardian. The Tibetan Mastiff sheds little and may or may not shed seasonally, depending on the climate in which he lives. Brush him 1 to 3 times a week with a wire slicker brush to remove dead or loose hair. Be sure to check for tangles or mats in the mane, breeches, and tail, where the coat is heaviest. Bathe as needed. This breed has little odor, so he usually doesn't require a bath more than once a month. Other grooming needs include dental hygiene and nail care. Brush your Tibetan Mastiff's teeth at least 2 or 3 times a week to remove tartar buildup and the accompanying bacteria. Daily is better. Trim his nails once or twice a month, or as needed. If you can hear the nails clicking on the floor, they're too long. Short nails keep the feet in good condition and don't get caught in the carpet and tear. If the feet need to be tidied up with trimming, the best time to do it is when you are clipping the nails. Check the ears weekly to make sure there's no debris, redness, or inflammation. Clean the ears as needed with a cotton ball and a cleanser recommended by your dog's breeder or your veterinarian. Wipe around the outer edge of the ear canal, and don't stick the cotton ball any deeper than the first knuckle of your finger. Begin getting your Tibetan Mastiff used to being brushed and examined when he's a puppy. Handle his paws frequently. Dogs are touchy about their feet and look inside his mouth and ears. Make grooming a positive experience filled with praise and rewards, and you'll lay the groundwork for easy veterinary exams and other handling when he's an adult. The Tibetan Mastiff is suitable for families with older children, but he can be too large to safely spend much time around toddlers. He would never mean to hurt them, but he could easily knock them over or step on them. Make it a rule that children are never to run and scream in a Tibetan Mastiff's presence. The noise and activity can excite him, and he's simply too big to be allowed to chase children or play roughly with them. He may also feel the need to protect his children from other kids, especially if they're wrestling or otherwise appear to be fighting. Always supervise play so that he knows you're in charge. Always teach children how to approach and touch dogs, and always supervise any interactions between dogs and young children to prevent any biting or ear or tail pulling on the part of either party. Teach your child never to approach any dog while he's sleeping or eating or to try to take the dog's food away. No dog should ever be left unsupervised with a child. Tibetan Mastiffs get along well with other dogs and cats when they're raised with them. As adults, they may require more of an adjustment period before they welcome the advent of another dog. Finding a reputable dog breeder is one of the most important decisions you will make when bringing a new dog into your life. Reputable breeders are committed to breeding healthy, well-socialized puppies that will make great companions. They will screen their breeding stock for health problems, socialize their puppies from a young age, and provide you with lifetime support. On the other hand, backyard breeders are more interested in making a profit than in producing healthy, well-adjusted dogs. They may not screen their breeding stock for health problems, and they may not socialize their puppies properly. As a result, puppies from backyard breeders are more likely to have both health and behavioral issues. If you like this video, please like, comment about your thoughts on this, subscribe and click the bell icon for further notifications.